Hi everyone, welcome to episode 2 of our series The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, where in our OTS Discord we've been inviting people to submit cards and we show them to an ARH design guru. Last time we had Echo 3 of clubs and he gave us opinion on some good, bad and ugly cards. And this time we've got Elrathion, who has very kindly agreed to give us time to join us. So I'm sure everyone knows who Elrathion is, but in case you don't know, he's one of the founding members of the ARH crew. The reason we're all still here playing Destiny, like 2 years after it was cancelled. He is deeply enmeshed in the ARH design process. He's an ARH admin, probably one of the top guys, and he's the owner of a new laptop. So thanks for coming on the show, Elrathion. It's great to have you here. Are you ready to see what some of the Destiny community has to show you and give your rating for it?
Yeah, absolutely, Duncan. Thanks for the intro. Really excited about this.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Well, we've got Majo, Basil, and Polyfly here, the co-hosts with OTS, and let's get straight into it. So let's look at card number 1. Which was submitted to us by Super DK, who got on the first episode. He got a very rare Chef's Kiss from Echo 3 of Clubs for his wonderful card Healing Touch. So he gets the honor of kicking us off this time with his plot, which Polyfly, do you want to take us through this one?
Sure. This is a plot cost 5, but it is neutral gray. It says a long time ago. After setup, add 2 set-aside plots to your team with a combined point value equaling 4 or less, following all other team-building restrictions. So a plot that lets you set aside 2 extra plots. For 5.
2 extra plots. And it costs 5, you can spend 4 points of plots. So really you're giving up 1 team-building point to be able to add an extra plot.
Yeah.
So that's
2
pretty
plots.
New.
Because
it adds an additional plot. Yeah. So, Elrathion, here you go. We'll get you off with a very different card that we've not seen any.
Yeah. Why don't we start easy, huh?
Yeah.
We did the same thing to Echo 3. welcome to the game.
Yeah, we should have started off with like a character, like. But
you know,
what do you think?
On a continuum of easy to hard to rate, cards like these fall definitely on the hard side.
For sure.
And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, just period. Anytime you introduce any type of new mechanic, you introduce the opportunity for disaster. There's all kind of crazy shenanigans that you might just not be thinking of, and no matter how much you playtest or how much you think things through, things might still fall through the cracks. So it's one of those cards where surface value, you pay 5, you get 2 plots, where's the harm? Sounds pretty good. But then you need to start to go through all of the plots that are created, look at all of the permutations, and kind of say, is there a problem here anywhere? Just one of the things that I can think of top of head is like, there's a couple plots that we have that are actually kind of free or kind of negative in a way, that they have the propensity to reduce the total team cost. And so, like, because they have team up. And so, what if you start to combine those two? Okay. And then, like, do you get some kind of crazy effects where, like, now all of your characters, because maybe you have characters that share 2 subtypes, and so now maybe every character is -2 by adding those plots together. Plus, you get the added benefits. And is that actually stronger than the 5-point cost that this represents, right? There's a lot of just, and especially so, I'll say like one of the things that is dangerous when it comes to these new type of effects that have such wild ramifications is if you make it neutral gray. Like, it's already hard to assess. Like, if it said something like include only if you have 2 blue characters in your team or something, then like your sphere of what this card can do is more kind of like narrowed down, and so it's like much easier to say, okay, let's try to think through like how much harm could this do with like only blue characters and all related plots that a blue character could have access to.
Sure.
But like neutral gray is like, okay, everything to everyone, right? So you have to look at every single plot, which is a lot of work for a designer. So like as a design lead, this would immediately be like headache land. I think it's cool. I think it's a great idea. If I'm not mistaken, Wild Horizons played with that concept as well. I think you had Tarkin and maybe had one other thing that tried to do something like that. But it's definitely risky.
Sure.
Hey, I say, let me have my profitable connection in high stakes. I'm starting the game with 4 resources. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's,
Or let's have ace pilots and destroy the Death Star, and then
Ooh.
you're shooting up the Death Star a lot quicker or something like that. Yeah, I mean, but I guess it probably limits future design for plots as well, because you have to consider this card every time you design a plot again.
well, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe this plot is the reason why Star Wars happened. It happened a long time ago. This is what kicked it off.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get a rating on that then. Sorry, Super DK. It doesn't sound like you got a chef's kiss this time, but I know you've done many more cards that will be in future episodes. Elrathion, let's go to you for a quick rating on this then. What do you think? What are you going to give it? A good or bad or an ugly?
I think I'm gonna give it a bad.
Okay.
And it as a concept, it's obviously a design space. It would just have to be evaluated very carefully before it could be included into a set.
Sure.
Okay. Sure. That's fair enough.
Too
That is
bad.
fair enough.
That's right.
Okay, well, without further ado, let's move on to the next one, which is from Ryan, one of our OTS members, who has gone into The Force Awakens, and one of the cool characters that I don't think we've seen at all yet, Tasker Leech, the boss of Kanji Club. I'll take you through this one. He is a yellow villain character with 1316 team building points and 11 health. And he's a character leader scoundrel. This is quite an interesting one that we wanted to talk about. His dice is 2 range for a resource, 2 focus, a disrupt, and a resource. After setup, lose 1 resource. So you start the game with 1 resource. Power action, resolve one of your dice showing damage as if it were showing disrupt. So that would give him 3 disrupt sides. Then, if an opponent has no resources, you may gain 2 resources. So it looks like you're starting the game with less money, but you always, every turn, have the opportunity, if possible, to try and gain 2 resources.
Ooh.
What do we think about this? We thought this was quite interesting from Ryan. What do you think? If you need more time to ponder this, Elrathion, just shout, and Majo and Polyfly will give...
Majo can start that one.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so it's not just those disrupts, on the surface. It's actually because it's sort of going in, either it's 180 degrees. You're gaining and they're losing. So that makes it, right? It's like a 20 mile per hour car. 20 mile per hour car is a 40 mile per hour collision,
Right.
so that it can be pretty extreme to both disrupt and gain simultaneously. Pretty potent.
Being
It's
able
also-
to hit it, being able to hit it early, I think. We've seen lots of cards in the past and lots of effects in the past where out the gate within the first 2 actions, disrupting your opponent for 2 is just devastating to the game. Which, I mean, there's effects like that in the game all the time. Look at Transformations Han, he has a 2 disrupt side. But the fact that you get to turn around and gain 2 resources off of it, like,
yeah.
you're effectively sitting on 3 resources at that point if you can get that off.
And I mean, remember, you're it's resolve one of your dice, so it's not one of this character's dice, it's any of your dice.
Very true.
So if you had a dice that was a 3 or even a 4, you could be disrupting your opponent for a lot more than just 2. It means that you're only gaining 2 from it, but you could potentially shut down your opponent quite a lot. And then if you've got this money, you've got money to spend you got the things you'll spend your resources on, like supports or something. What do you think, Elrathion? How does this strike you?
So there's a couple things going on. I think when you start evaluating this character, the first thing you can do is kind of like, if you blank the text and just set like what is its health box and what is its dice box, and how does that compare relative to other 16-point characters? And I would probably say, in today's environment, under the curve. Like 16, 11 is still kind of on curve, but we're starting to trend to where 12 seems to be more the acceptable norm for 16, 17. 11 is still passable, but it's not like exciting land, right? It's like on curve / a little bit weak. The dice, like having a paid 2 for 1 on a 16, which is kind of your big, like in the pairing, like it's not great. You also don't really love to have it to focus on the character that has the highest point cost in your team.
Mm-hmm.
And a 1 disrupt is also not the most fantastic side. It's not a bad side, but it's not the die side that you want to resolve on your biggest character in the team. So there's like two good die sides, the resource and the 2 gun, right? So from that perspective, it's not amazing. Then you start to look at the subtypes, 2 very serviceable subtypes, so that's a good sign. After setup lose 1 resource is like, feels really bad. Now the power action is obviously where it gets interesting, as everyone has pointed out. One of the things that's interesting about the way this is worded is that, like, there's not really a fail state to this. Well, there is a fail state, I guess, into support decks, but into I would say probably most decks that you're playing against, there probably won't be a fail state for getting the resources. Most decks won't have more than 2 resources laying around by the time you want to resolve that range damage somewhere. And so even if they have no resources, you still get 2 resources.
Mm-hmm.
So you could decide to do the ranged damage, to disrupt 0, let's say,
Yeah.
and you still get $2, right? You could take a pedally 1 gun somewhere, and
It's $2. Yeah.
you get $2, right? So from that perspective, like it's a strong power action. It'll definitely be weaker again into vehicle decks. I mean, disrupting 2 is always sweet, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's a little bit. I think it's an interesting design. I like it from a design perspective. So like, not all cards need to be like tier 1. Not all cards need to be good.
Sure.
Yeah.
But they need to be like, I think they largely either need to be like good or interesting. If they're neither good nor interesting, then they typically wind up in the binder, right? Because like if you don't want to play with it, because it's like, ooh, let's build a deck around this. I know this is not gonna work, but at least let me try it. Or if it's not like at least like tier 2, then you probably would just want to slot in the binder, right? And so at the very least, the card is interesting.
That's good.
I'm not convinced that it would be good.
He feels like a big support character, right? Like, it feels like you would put him into a support, and I don't know that I want to spend 16 points on a support character.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's like an 11-14 character or something, like
Well, I think at that point he'd have to adjust his die for sure, because I mean, I'm playing this guy for his power action. Like, that's the reason I'm playing him. Like, it's I think it's like Elrath said, like you get that bonus off the power action regardless of if they have resources or not.
Yeah.
I could see this character at like 11-14 with a no damage side die, and because I'm playing him for his power action into a support deck, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you play non-unique, right? And maybe there's like some funny non-unique situations you could pull off.
3 by
I think largely when you want to like evaluate these cards, like when I evaluate cards, it's more of a decision of like pass the playtest or not pass the playtest. And like because like everyone has an opinion.
Sure.
And so like it's not like you know, my opinion is that much better or always right compared to other designers, right? But it's more kind of like, does a card have significant red flags, or is it really worded like extremely wrong to where it's like it just shows a complete lack of professionalism to where we can't pass it on to the playtesters? And if it's not, then let them test with it, right? And also, like, does it fit within the overall theme of the set and the arc, etc.? You know, does it fit within kind of the meta game? You know, all that good stuff, right? And so from that perspective, you know, this card is fine, right? You can hypertune it, you know, based on results from playtesting, and say, you know, is it too weak? Is it too strong? Should I tune up the die more? Is the point cost right? Those are all good debates, but it doesn't scream like completely nuts overpowered.
It's not the greatest card ever designed, but it's a good starting point, you know, to maybe take that idea and then run with it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay.
Which is as much as you want, right? You want something to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, that I'd say that's a success, but it'll still get rated bad. Yeah. Sorry, Ryan. But that's me putting words in your mouth. What would you say, Elrath?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Okay, there we go.
Good design.
It's bad, but interesting. Okay, we can move on to our next card. Next card, then we will move on, and it is our Rebel Friend, which
Rebel Friend.
Love the artwork on this one. We'll see if you can guess who has done this one. The Rebel Friend, Polyfly. Tell us about this.
The Rebel Friend is a true Jedi. He's a 9 health red character hero for 9 and 11. So he like Echo was saying last time, kind of fits that health pool to cost ratio. He is a character trooper, which is important in this day and age. He does have Guardian, and it says after you discard a support from play, you may gain 1 resource. And he has a power action. It says remove this die to place 1 damage on a support. Discard that support if it has damage on it equal to or greater than its cost. And his die is a 1 gun, a 2 gun, a 1 focus, a 1 shield, and a 1 money, and a blank. So a trooper that lets you do discarding support shenanigans.
You're removing his character die once a turn to put damage on a support. So eventually he's going to run up enough damage on a support to discard it.
Correct.
The true Jedi just.
Yeah, why he's a Jedi, I do not know. But I love the Lego artwork. From like PS1 era Lego Star Wars or something.
Norman would love this because he doesn't have to roll blanks anymore with X-Wings.
Yeah.
Blank.
Always useful. Elrath, what do you think about this one then?
There's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is like missing the dot after Guardian. That's really just unacceptable, to be honest.
I think you might have an idea of who made this card.
So, gosh, so many things. So number one, I mean, like by and large, our sets have been sticking to canon, and so we would have to research what this notion of rebel friend true Jedi is, and say like, oh, like does this actually fit within canon, right? Just stick with the thematic outside of even like judging the cards. At 9/11, I think this card brings a lot to the table. I think it's a definitely serviceable die. The health is definitely on curve. And the power action is really strong.
Yeah.
Like really, really strong.
Yep.
So it's a really good card.
I actually really like the before the power action. After you discard a support from play, you may gain 1 resource. If you power actioned a 1 cost support or a 0 cost support every turn, it's also a resource engine. You know, it's also a money making card as well. If you aim for the low hanging fruit rather than the bigger ones.
I mean, I just like as a general note, and this is definitely not a rule. Slash, it's also like an area where we've like we haven't passed, maybe gone too far. Is that anytime a card has more than one ability, it faces extra scrutiny, right? And so you're kind of dealing with a 2.5/3 abilities on a card like this.
Mm-hmm.
You have Guardian, which is 1 ability. You have after you discard a support from play, you may gain 1 resource. That might or might not be an ability depending on how easy it is in a given environment to pull that off outside of its power action. But if let's say there's another kind of continuum of cards that gets created that has makes it easy to discard supports from play, then this is definitely an ability. Much like the Death Watch Mandalorian had an entire engine created around it, right? And then it also is able to fuel that engine by its power action. So 2.5, 3 abilities on a 9 cost card is a lot. So it's definitely, those are factors that we take into consideration when evaluating cards like this.
Yeah.
Is it too good though? I mean, it's a good card. If that came out, we would all play it. So it can be good in that sense, but is it good design? Is it balanced design? I guess good in our good, bad, and ugly refers to, is it a balanced design? Is it something that you could see finding a place in a set?
It's obviously objectively a good card, as in a strong card. It's one that perhaps could find its way in a set, but only after rigorous testing, analysis of the strength of its ability.
Is it too good? Yeah.
And if it's too good or not, right? I think the ability to, there's plenty of just like, I mean, there's a lot of like really good 0 cost supports out there, right? Greed coming to mind, right? Yep. If you pop this baby in a support deck, anytime you play against Greed, you powerful ally, even pre-errata, it's 0 cost, so all you need to do is like roll out this guy, and then remove the die, get rid of Greed as powerful ally, and then get it back for your troubles. So like pretty much you cannot play 0 cost supports unless you have a way to deal with Rebel Friends die.
Why is it true Jedi?
Yeah, which is that's what I'm saying. It's like it's really powerful. Like I think it's just from intuition, like it might be too powerful. But it would definitely be kind of like in the category of like risky.
Sure.
Okay.
for me.
Okay. I mean, I think you know who designed it, but do you want to take a stab at letting us know who you think designed this card?
I'm actually not sure.
You're not sure? Okay. Who designed this card? Majo.
That would be the one and only Rebel Trader.
No.
Yep. I don't-
Rebel Trader,
I
not
don't-
the Rebel Friend, but the Rebel Trader.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's...
Okay, so let's
Rebel
get a
Trade
rating.
is actually a designer, by the way, so, you know, I have to
Oh.
watch out with him.
Perfect, yeah. Give that a rating then for us. Good, bad, or ugly?
Well, knowing it's from Rebel Trader, I have to give it an ugly.
There you go, Rebel.
Perfect.
Excellent. Good stuff. Okay, cool. Well, without further ado, let's move on. We have one from our very own Majo Basil sitting right there. Choke on your ambition. Do you remember what this says when you designed it, Majo, or do you want us to
Alright.
read it out?
I'll read it here. So, yeah. So gain 4 resources. Cost 1 resource. It's a red villain event. Gain 4 resources. Then roll 2 set-aside blackmail dice into your opponent's pool. You must end the round with 0 resources, otherwise you lose the game.
Right, okay.
And for all those at
What-
home who
I
don't remember,
read this like... And that's the blackmail
That's the
card,
blackmail,
in case
yeah.
anyone needs a
There's
quick
your dot.
reminder, which is like a bunch
Well-
of disrupt and a bunch of discard, really powerful sides.
Yep.
But you got to pay for it. Right, okay, well, Majo, before Elrathion starts to give us our views on this, because he's probably going to need 10 minutes to process it like we all did when we first saw it, can you tell us what you were thinking when you designed this card? I love it, but...
I will say that I had just finished watching, a YouTube video all about Obi-Wan Kenobi and like Vader's, how Disney's handling Vader, and I was just on a Vader kick, and I was like, you know what? Remember what Echo said about one of the best ways to design a card is you start with the title. And I was thinking of that scene with Krennic and Vader, where I know people kind of don't like it, where Vader makes the pun, don't choke on your ambition. He's like force choked him. And I was like, that'd be kind of cool. We'll see. So it's this idea of, admittedly, it probably should have been Hero, because I don't know, that really would have made sense. But Hero's they're the ones who have these ridiculous support decks, right? So they're the ones who really should be tempted, with this.
Right.
And then if they fail, they lose the damn game.
So, take us through it then. So you gain 4 resources,
Yep.
and then you roll 2. Why do you roll in the 2 blackmails?
So you
and
effectively gain 3 resources, but your opponent gets to roll in these really scary dice that have discards and disrupts on them.
right.
And so, they're putting you in this situation where, are they going to stop you from spending your money in an effective way to get to exactly 0? Like, they're going to either resolve their discards if they're, if they think you have a way to spend exactly 3, or they might disrupt you 2, leaving you with 1. And so it's a way to throw you off. It's a little bit of a mind game. That was my idea. It was just,
Yeah. Yeah. So you really basically gaining a load of resources and you're trying to spend them before your opponent inevitably disrupts them away from you.
yeah.
So it's like a can you catch me type of thing.
Now, they don't want to disrupt you to 0, because all you have to do is end the round with 0 and you don't lose. Right? They're trying to disrupt you down to 1 or discard your hand so you can't spend your money,
Okay.
It was just, it's, hey, good, the bad.
Well, if you think about it, right? Like, let's say that you hit the 3 disrupts on one of the dice, right?
Mhm.
Which is a 30% chance, right? Then the net result is that you discarded a card from hand, right? Because you paid 1, so you gained net 3, they disrupted you 3, so you discarded a card from hand to play this card, right? There's also a 33% chance that you get a 3 discard. 3 discard might actually be worse. Because then they can set it up in such a way that, like, especially because the first thing that happens is you play this card, you gain the resources, but the blackmails go into their pool. So you hit the 3 discards. If they have 5 cards in hand, you played this card, you didn't draw anything else, you're down to 1 card. If they hit the double disrupt, you play this card, you just lose the game. So, like, it's just, I love the thematic. I love the notion of it. But do I see any chance in the world that I would ever play this, or even like think about like even remotely? I mean, you wouldn't want this card to be balanced to begin with, but it could also not be a Discord, and I feel like at the moment it's a Discord.
Oh man!
You play this card. You play this card, and you're not only taking a big choke on your ambition, but you're swan diving into the pool.
It's like you include this card if you want to like legally concede in a tournament to your opponent.
If you want to drop, just play that and then get out of there. Yeah.
This is, I know I'm gonna lose, but I'm gonna lose on my terms.
You can't fire me, I quit. So what you talking about, Raph?
Why not?
It's ugly as dog shit is what you're telling me.
It's pretty ugly.
That was
Ugly.
hard.
It's I mean, mind you, it's like I love cards that like you think outside of the box, but they're also like so dangerous, right? Because let's say you try to make this good, like you have a very high risk to all of a sudden just swing the pendulum from just being like really bad to being like no,
Yeah.
like we just can never allow this to happen, right? So it's almost like a card like this can never be good because then it would be too good, right?
Yeah.
And so like you would have to find an optimum of like a reasonable amount of risk associated with the reward, right? Because if the reward is too high and the risk is low, it's a very big problem. By counter, with this, the reward is like 2 blackmails and like, well, good luck, buddy. And a 3 discard side.
Excellent. All right. Well, I guess what are you calling that ugly? Ugly
I'm calling it ugly.
as canine feces. That's 2 ugly as dog shits in a row, Joe. You gotta go for the trifecta next time. Good stuff, though. Excellent. All right, cool. Well, let's move on again. Next up, we have got friend of OTS, Darth Vino, with stun cuffs. Darth Vino has been very complimentary about everything we've done so far, and we love him. And he has given us some stun cuffs to look at, which is a downgrade. It's a red neutral downgrade. Oh, sorry, Magic.
Wow. Vino did the art for this as well. Just wanted to shout that out.
He did the art. Cool.
He did the art. Yeah, it's got his stamp on it. Darth Vino. It looks amazing. And it's a red neutral downgrade. Stun cuffs attached character can have, it costs 2. You play it on your opponent's character, and that character can have a maximum of 2 lightsaber upgrades. Those upgrade dice cannot be modified by card effects. So I guess Darth Vino hates Jarkai and Ahsoka. He's probably been burned by that in the past. Jarkai decks. But, as Elrathion said when we were chatting in the run-up to this, he looks at cards not necessarily individually, but where it fits inside the whole set and the whole meta at the time. So this is probably quite a useful card to comment upon, Elrathion. What do you make of this straight away?
I love the art, and I almost want to just call it good just because it's from Dart. He's just an amazing guy and does so much for the community. So unfortunately,
Ooh.
from the text, so here's a question. Is there a lightsaber subtype?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think there is, right? There's just equipment.
You have a
would
great
it-
weapon,
Weapon.
Ahsoka Tano's lightsaber, etc. Right? So when you're saying you could have, like, intuitively, you could say like, oh, you can only have 2 lightsabers, right? And in English, that just makes total sense, right?
Sure.
But then, like
in the mechanic, yeah.
what are 2 lightsaber upgrades?
Yeah.
Right? And so now, I mean, so like from an intent perspective, I get what we're trying to do here.
Sure.
But like you could say like 2 upgrades which have lightsaber in its title, or like in like things like that, or that's like 2 lightsaber upgrades is not like there's upgrade weapon, there's upgrade equipment. There's
if we change the wording on that to how lightsabers have been referred to in maybe lightsaber pool or things like that, if it changed to attached character can have a maximum of 2 upgrades with lightsaber in the title, that might work.
Yeah, lightsaber feels like blue weapon, right? So it's not referring to like you can pull any blue weapon there. So if we think about the intent of it rather than the actual verbiage,
Sure.
let's say, then we evaluate it in terms of a silver bullet.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Like it's a big investment at 2 costs. I think it's an interesting one to contemplate. I'm not sure if it would see like it. I don't think it would see enough play at 2 to be included in Index.
So the way I feel about this card is if Destiny had a sideboard, this would be amazing.
Sure. Right.
It was like
3 games.
it's a silver bullet,
It's
or
pretty situational. It's pretty situational, dependent upon what your opponent's got. Yeah.
I think you nailed it. I think Darth Vino must have had some bad experiences with Jarkai, If it actually did say limit your opponent to just 2 weapons or even just 2 upgrades, I mean, that would be devastating. So
yeah, it was like 2 upgrades periods, like not even lightsaber. Then that would be, that would be very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at 2 resources, that's ridiculous, I think. But yeah. I like it.
I like it too. I think if it was weapon upgrades, then it fits into a lot more. It becomes slightly less a lot more less situational, and it's something that's going to hamper your opponent for sure.
It's also tricky, right? Because it's like silver bullets are extremely tricky in Destiny because either they're too weak, or they're like DM, right? Like there's almost no in between. Like when it comes to the silver bullets, they just don't get played, or they're like super strong, and you probably just want to include them in every that possible. And if it said like if it just attacked like any upgrade, let's say, or any weapons, then on weapons only, it would be very strong, and like it would definitely be a deterrent for any Jarkai builds. But there's other options there, so I'm not even sure if it'd be like, I mean, there's multiple ways you can deal with a Jarkai type of effect, right? So even then, I mean, I think it's playable at that point. I still wouldn't think even at like 2 weapons, it would be super prevalent.
Okay. So give that a rating then. Probably. What do you think?
if we assume its intent, and even its intent was like to really specifically target lightsaber, it would probably still be ugly.
Oh wow!
Unfortunately for me.
Okay.
All right.
Because I mean, you think about the number of like weapons. There's a bunch of like good weapons that don't have lightsaber that are perfectly serviceable with Jarkai.
True. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugly, but with beautiful art, we must say.
Oh yeah, I mean the art is like beautiful for sure, right? But we're talking about the balance of the card, let's say.
Of course,
The
yeah.
artwork's not ugly. The artwork is not ugly. Okay, we love the
No.
artwork. Okay, all right, cool. Let's move on. Polyfly can take us through the next card, which is Leia Organa.
Leia Organa, the legendary general, 13 health for 15/18 build cost. 2 focus, 2 shield, 2 discard, 2 money for 1 money, 2 money, and a blank. So her die is packing some heat. She is character leader, very serviceable subtype leader. She says after you take the pass action, place 1 resource on this character. So how many times can you take the pass action in a round? As many times as your opponent will let you, right?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
She also has a power action that says remove 1 resource from this card. Then, if there are at least 5 resources on this card, you may resolve one of this character's character dice as if it was showing range damage, increasing its value by 1. But
Oh.
Hero Red. I threw up. That was gross.
That was him gagging.
It was me gagging. That's insane. I'm gonna pass a bunch of times at the beginning of the round because I want you to do a bunch of things first, and then I'm just gonna power action. I don't know, 2 discard for 3 guns.
Who did this one again, Duncan?
This one was DJ Claro.
Yep,
DJ
Claro.
Crow.
DJ Claro. Yeah.
So I like the mind games with this one. You know, because your opponent will take an action, and you're gonna be tempted as the player who's brought Leia to just pass, but then they can just pass back, right? And then they can accumulate a ridiculous amount of resources, and it's just the mind games are.
But early in the round, like you don't this. If I'm playing this Leia early in the round, I'm passing every single time because my opponent's not going to want to pass because they want to set up their board, they want to play their weapons,
Yeah.
they want to play their supports. So, oh man, it's gross.
If your opponent passes in response to your pass, then you're resetting and you're both getting 2 more resources, and then you've got more things to play your supports for, and then use that to focus that she has, and
Yeah.
it just gets more
Oh.
dangerous.
So
Yeah.
it's really interesting, right? Like, if we look at her die, right? Like, I mean, obviously 2 resources is really good. This is objectively just amazing die, right? Like, I love 2 resources, but you know, I also just love the after you take the pass action. I think it's a little stroke of genius here. I think this is really cool design. But like, her die is actually on the weak side for 18. I mean, let's think about Faltering Allegiance is Politic, right? Like he also has a 2 resource side. A 2 for 1 resource is okay. It's just a serviceable. It's a good die. Like, you know, but Bala has a 3 gun. He has a 4 for 1. He has 2 shields, right? The 2 discard is also really good. But like, it's not that die is amazing, and the payoff of getting to 5 just means that one of those dice now is a 3 gun.
Yeah.
Which is good, but it's not like
It's not game breaking.
it's not game breaking. You know. So, you know, like, it's like I think she starts off a little bit of a weaker die. Once she gets to the power action level, now she can turn. The die becomes super flexible. One of the sides, right? So, but I don't think it's like. I don't like the power action. Kind of serves to like tune up her slightly under the curve die.
Okay. If that was an action instead of a power action, and then there you could try it on both of her dice, turning both of her dice into 3 ranged each. Does that become a bit more balanced or a bit more on curve?
Yeah, it certainly makes it stronger. It's like I was really close to like I really would love to give it like the good, right? Because like I'm like I mean, first of all, that art is amazing on that card. This whole after you take a pass action, like game space, like design space, like just gets me really excited. And just like the thing for like, woo, there's like a whole other thing that could be developed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then like the payoff related to like her cost, etc. Like I'm not sold on. I do appreciate the flexibility, but it's kind of like it's her ability. Like it's just like she has one ability. Sometimes when you start to get into like the 18 plus range, you start to see 2 abilities on a character instead of 1.
Mm-hmm.
So she really kind of like has. I mean, you could argue it's 2 abilities, but there's if you would factor in that like if there was a lot of things that you could do with like the place one uses on a character, maybe you can use those resources for other things than instead of that power action, and then there would be like value in that, right? But the dice on its own, I mean, HP is kind of is on curve, right? For 18, I die either to discard and to resource is really good, but it's not like, yeah, it's not amazing. And so therefore I can't like give it a good.
I'm
I'm
excited.
Okay.
I'm excited to see you, Elrath, of all people, excited about something on the card that just opens up design space.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
that's also one of those things that like us as the Destiny community, like you guys have been doing the design piece for what 2 years now, 3 years now. Like to have the community present something that gets you that excited about something that you can design around, possibly. Like that's awesome.
Well, DJ Claro is just such an innovative deck builder to begin with, right?
Yeah.
And so to see a person like that translate his deck building genius into like, card prototypes
Sure.
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll
Clear.
take that. That's good. It's good, but not quite good. Yeah. Okay. It's a shame that this is called Good, Bad, and the Ugly. It should be called Good, Pretty Good, and Ugly. As Echo said that last time as well.
I feel like bad. Like I should like I should like find my first good here because I want to like add. Are like not calling anything good.
Well, wait till you see the next card, man, because the next card might be my favorite. I don't know. We'll see. Let's move on, and we have got. I'll take you through this one. Yukusu Kenzakina. Immediately know who this card was designed by if you know anything about OTS or our resident Java nutcase. Do you know who this is, Elrath? I guess.
Well, I mean, it's on the card, isn't it?
He did. He put it on the card this time. Yeah.
I'm not listening too closely.
I'm just gonna.
He did put it on the card.
It was made by Neutral Grey. What a funny name that is. Well, there we go. The resident Java nutcase, Rando Mando, has come up with this card. Of course, it's a grey neutral card, which costs 1, and it's an event. Pick a support card in play, yours or your opponent's. If you own the card, give it to the opponent, then gain resources equal to its cost. So, like, recycle it, but instead of putting it in the discard pile, you give it to your opponent. Or if you don't own it, spend resources equal to its cost +1 and then take it. So again, kind of maybe like a fickle mercenary type thing. You can pay the money, take control of it, but it gives you the choice. So you can recycle it to your opponent and get the money, or you can buy it from your opponent at a cost. I think this is an interesting design. I think this is great.
Yeah, what I love about this card is it's sort of like that Hail Mary. At the end of the game, you might have a beefy support available, but you need the resources to play some other card in your hand that you're more confident is going to help you win the game versus that card you already have in play. Just sell it to your opponent, and then spend those resources, right, and hope that they don't kill you with it. I think it's just super interesting. Or late game, you got the cash, buy their Blizzard, man. Take control. Got 9 resources lying around. So, it's very interesting.
And I mean, of course, you can start to combine this with other things like the TIE Bomber or the Cloud card or some supports that kind of, might leave the game of their own sort of accord, or supports that no longer have any use, like a used up merchant freighter or anything like this. There's lots of ways that you can interact with it, but it gives you that choice. So
there's a couple of things with the card. I mean, number one, I could be wrong on this, but I'm not sure if own is like a Star Wars Destiny word. I think we have control, but I don't think we have owning a card as such defined. So it's just like a little language thing. But from an effect perspective, this would almost certainly be a veto. like from a design perspective, just because I mean there's balance, and then there's like risk of toxicity, and like it's so open. Again, it's neutral gray. It's so open. The amount of effects that you would have to account for to take control of any card, like it's not like any support card. Like it's it's
I know
it's pretty warping.
I know you've already brought it up, but like zero cost greed, right? Like I'd take your greed from you.
I mean, you're paying 2 for it, but still, I mean, now like it's obviously you pay 6 for the reset. It would be a very costly endeavor. Like I mean, the fact that it's support, right? At least it's not like any card.
True.
But it's such a mind bender of like, okay, so what are all the supports that you could potentially play as in any deck, hero and villain? Let's start to think through all of the permutations. Is there something of a troublesome interaction with giving control? And like and the resource gain is not like there's no cap to it, right? So like you have to start to like do all kind of like mind gymnastics to like figure out if there's a problem with this. Like it's such a dangerous card to introduce, right? That gives so much headache to evaluate as a designer to like introduce, that I'd be extremely worried.
Man, you sound just like Echo 3 with his like uncapped is dangerous and all of this sort of stuff.
Well, yeah, because it's
just taking all the fun out.
We determined here on the sensors that uncapped is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like I have this discussion with the designers frequently. It's like, like what is the upper limit that of an effect that could be associated with a 1-cost card, right? And so there's all these kind of interesting discussions that we have. It's like, well, but it's rare, so so therefore it's so like like we were back in the day with like faltering allegiance with unending hate. It's like, well, it's the probability if you get like 3 blanks is pretty low. But if you're gonna blank the fourth one, if you have 4 damage for 1 cost card and blank a die, you're gonna scream. Right? And there's a bunch of cards that like have that property of having an excess effect for what a 1 cost should do, right? And we already have some cards in play that like, you know, I think are beyond the bounds of what a 1 cost probably should be doing. And if we introduce another one, it should always face an above average scrutiny before it could be introduced. And I think this is one that like, you know, fits that bill of like it could potentially do a whole bunch.
Yeah.
It could. It costs quite a lot though. You're paying 1 for the card, and then spending an extra 1 to take control of. So it's got its downside as well. Here's me.
No, it definitely does. But there's some decks that don't care about that, right? Like if there's decks that like, you know, have control like half of their deck up in 1 round, right? At a certain point, they're like, okay, sure, I'll get you this 1 card because I've already rolled it, resolved it, got the value out of it. Maybe I was able to discard your hand, so you don't have removal anymore. And so now I'll take all the resources to go to town. It's also like, frankly, like a fairly good silver bullet into certain type of, you know, into certain type of decks, right? You know,
Yeah.
to counter like really annoying supports. You're like, okay, I'll just take control of it. Thank you.
Well,
I know I'll pay 2, but I'll take
I'll
control
buy
of
your
it.
pirate ship and stop
Well,
you.
Well, I think
messing
cards.
with
I
me.
think cards that bring other cards. Like I would want to play this in decks that I want to steal people's 5/0 first. So I can pump out more E-webs or steal the Bad Batch or whatever for 1 extra resource. Yeah, sure. I'll pay 5 for a Bad Batch every day of the week.
Yeah.
Well, technically, you paid 6 because the car cost 1.
You're paying the 1.
True. Right.
But the premise more generally probably is that you're rich enough at that point,
Right.
to afford it, right?
It's also taking away the limit of a 30-card deck because you're effectively being able to play your opponent's cards as well. So
Yeah, but so there's that element. I mean, like this is kind of a double whammy, right? Because like I mean, it's certainly possible after the evaluation of of most of the permutations, you come to the conclusion that like, it's a reasonable effect, right? And then the other element of it is that you also have to deal with the other side of where you have to evaluate cards like this more carefully, and it's the notion that like anytime that you introduce a card, the Destiny community does not like you to mess with their own cards, like in general, much more so than I've had like, you know, I've played games like Runeterra and other games, like, and I've been like toying with certain ideas of like, you know, effects happening where you get to do stuff with cards from an opponent's deck and whatever, right? And like anytime you like broach the conversation, it's like, wow, ooh, like you know, people don't really love the notion in Destiny of you taking your opponent's cards, and where it has been possible, it has been like you had to do some work for it, right? Like Cad Bane or whatever, to take control of your opponent's cards. This is just, if you have the resources, I'll take it.
rather than and play a
right,
great
and-
card.
And then like even if it's, let's say it's balanced, right? Now you get people to be wanting to quit Destiny because you stole their card. Even if it's not rational, they'll be angry at you. Be like, this is my card. You beat me with my card. That's not fair.
All right, so
Okay, Elrathion, you're right, we're wrong. Okay.
so what you're saying is that this one's also ugly as dog shit.
Dude.
Yeah. Excellent.
Join me, Rando. Join me.
Okay, nice. Well, let's move on. The next one is my card. Okay, I can admit it. We have Sors Bandim, legendary Sors Bandim, who should have skipped class that day. He is a character, an apprentice, blue hero, of course, with a pretty crappy dice, but he's only 3 and 5. Reduce the cost of weapons played on this character by 2. You may target this character with your own dice. After this character is defeated, flip this card. Now, don't go to the next side yet. Let's look at this by itself. So he got 4 health, and he's got 0, 0, 1, 1 melee. And I guess that's to enable any weapons that you might play on him. The 0 cost might be allowing you to get modifiers off if you were choosing to play weapons on him. I suggest you play a redeploy on him because he's pretty quickly going to get killed by your own hand.
Wait, I've seen how this episode ends.
Yeah. Yeah, so poor little guy doesn't last that long, but makes a big impact. Soars Bandim, that's the guy's name. Okay, I'll get a very quick opinion from you, Elrathion, now before we flip the card and show you the B side. What do you think about this?
Overpowered as hell.
Overpowered as hell, yeah.
Oh, so overpowered. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, it's not even close. Like, it's so ridiculously overpowered. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
This is like the strongest card we've seen, like, in all of this so far.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness. Like, what's the, like, we had, we had the Youngling, right? And the Youngling was, cost 4.
Yeah.
And the Youngling could play a card, on it, -1 as a power action. You had to, like, you had to have a Jedi, you know?
Yeah.
Swords right here cost 1 less.
Just
It has a die. It can just pump as many weapons on it of redeploy. I mean, I don't know what the flip side is. The flip side might be like, you do some kind of, some nasty stuff or whatever. But like, it's like Youngling on steroids. like it's so good. I would include it in any blue deck that I could find immediately.
He's the new meta. Team in every deck.
It's so good. I mean, like, it's way too good.
The deck I'm playing, the deck I'm playing this in, I'm calling it "Stop Hitting Yourself."
Stop hitting yourself. Exactly. All right, cool.
And that, folks, concludes episode 2, part A. Who's excited to see Soars Bandim's flip side? I know I am. Will it be as overpowered as the front side? Will it not be? Did he actually make it to class? Stay tuned to find out, as well as catch Elrath's other assessments of all the remaining cards submitted by you, the community. We'll see you in episode 2, part B.